Right then. So, to begin with, we'll take a look at the GCSE process for maths and English. In terms of GCSE maths, students will start off by taking one of 5 different diagnostic assessments that are available within bksb Live 2. So there's a diagnostic for number, there's another one for algebra, geometry and so on, ratio and probability. Each one of these diagnostics in turn links to a suite of interactive learning resources. Again, there are 5 of these overall, marrying up with the course sectors, but within those there are over 100 individual higher and foundation units. These units are comprised of information, questions, videos, images and so on and so forth, and they are designed to meet any skill gaps and fill any skill gaps that a student might have which were identified by the diagnostic. Following on from the completion of the learning resources, in mathematics, students can proceed on to the exam practice tasks. Now for maths, these include what are known as the end tests. There are 5 mock exams for higher and 5 for foundation, again meeting those those 5 separate courses. And each one of those will give you and your student a detailed breakdown of their scores in the multiple different areas and topics that make up each one of these sort of 5 umbrella sectors. So within number there'll be all sorts of different elements, decimals, basic operations, BIDMAS, what have you, and the exam practice tasks will define just how well students have answered questions in each of those. I'll demonstrate all of these for you just in a few minutes. In addition to those 3 main sections, so the diagnostic, the learning resources and the exam practice, within maths there are also 2 progression assessments. Now there's one for higher and there's one for foundation, and what these enable tutors to do is to show distance travelled from one point in time to another. They can be taken by students at any point during the academic year. A lot of customers like to get their students to sit one of these at the outset alongside the diagnostics, and then they can measure how far they've come at some subsequent point prior to the exam. In terms of English, it's ever so slightly different. Again, it's very much the same process as bksb's pioneered with functional skills, but in English we have just the 2 sections. We have reading and writing. So to begin with, a student can sit an interactive diagnostic for reading and another one for writing. They can also sit a paper-based writing diagnostic, which in addition to functioning as part of the diagnostic assessment can also be used as the English progression assessment. Now that's because it can be used in 2 formats. It can be scaffolded or unscaffolded, and by that what we mean is you can simply give the student the questions within the written diagnostic / progression assessment and ask them to go away and come back with their answers, or you can give them sort of additional material which comes with the pack, and that breaks the questions down into simpler bite-sized pieces, and it sort of holds the student's hand as they work their way through. So if you have students who are demotivated or have already been sort of turned off from English, and you don't want to demotivate them any further just at the outset by saying here's a load of questions, just answer them. I know you can't answer them really, but try your best and we'll see how you do. You can give them the scaffolded version, and this talks them through it. It explains what the tutor is looking for. It gives sort of model answers for certain sections, and the student can feel more at home whilst they're doing that. So if that's more useful, the student can sit that obviously at the outset, and then as you find out what their skill gaps are from the diagnostics, you take them through with your tuition and the homework and the resources from bksb and so on, and then at some later point you could perhaps give them the unscaffolded version, so that you can see just how far they've come. So you can have that combination of interactive and paper-based diagnostics at the outset for GCSE English. And once they have been completed, you don't have, I'll just make it clear that you don't have to do the paper-based one if you don't want to, but we always think it's advantageous if students do that. Once those diagnostics have been completed, students can move on to the English resources. There are 8 in total, similar to the sort of the 5 main ones in maths. These are split 4 and 4, so there's 4 within the writing section and 4 within the reading section, and then they're further subdivided into a multiplicity of areas, and that takes the students through those sections and fills in those skill gaps. Thereafter, and this is where it's dissimilar to the mathematics, English has separate end tests. These are interactive resources which map directly across from the learning resources. So within, say, the writing section, there's the spelling, punctuation and grammar. You have got spelling, punctuation and grammar end tests. They, as the name suggests, they're a sequence of questions which asks students to show and prove their competency in the particular area that we're looking at. And then, because they're interactive, the system can mark them, and tutors and students will receive a detailed breakdown of their skills in that particular area. Once a student has completed all of the learning resources and the subsequent end tests, they can then move on to the exam practice. For English, it sort of comes in 2 sections. There are ultimately 2 sets of exam practice materials, set 1 and set 2. In each of those, both of which are modelled primarily on AQA, as it's got the lion's share of the market, in each of those there is a paper A and a paper B. So that matches up with the way that AQA is set out, and the questions are directly comparable to those that students would experience in the real exam. In preparation for sitting those mock exams ready to then do the real exams, what we've also produced is a suite of 8 preparation tasks. And what these do is a bit like the progression assessment. They are scaffolded and they are directly related to individual questions that students will sit in the exam. So there are 8 in total, because there is 1 for each of question 2, 3, 4 and 5 on the first paper, and then another set of preparation tasks for questions 2, 3, 4 and 5 on the second paper, and that's why we get the 8 in total. Students, it's advisable for students to sort of sit these and pinpoint any areas of weakness, get those all sorted, and then go on to the actual exam practice sets themselves and see how well they do. In terms of English and maths combined then, we also have paper-based versions of all of our interactive English resources available. And we have paper-based versions for the maths number module. The idea is that further maths modules will be added in due course as well. We also have, for the English exam practice, 2 different versions of the exams, as well as there being the 2 different sets. So students can finalize and complete these exams interactively via the BKSB Live 2 system, or they can have them printed off as printable PDFs, and they can complete them at their leisure. You upload images of their handwritten work, or they can complete it in Microsoft Word, say, and upload the document, and they can be uploaded to the system via ePortfolio. The tutor can be notified, and then the tutor can mark the work and let the student have it back. For all of these sections, in English and Maths, there are tutor guides available which go into detail about what precisely is in each subsection. And there, just as an example for you, in the bottom left-hand corner, is a screen grab of an end test result, which shows you that you can see it shows the overall result, the 91% in the green sort of circle at the top, and then coming down at the bottom you have the individual breakdown. Thus you can see that within, this is the grammar result, within grammar we've had 8 out of 8 on adjectives, 6 out of 8 on adverbs, 4 out of 8 on pronouns, and so on. So students and tutors can look more precisely at where the students themselves might still need a little bit of assistance. In terms of GCSE, we really do also value feedback from tutors and organisations, and we endeavour to make changes wherever we feel that's possible and beneficial. To that extent, we've added additional videos to the interactive resources. We received feedback that students disliked the amount of reading that was required, so we took steps to reduce that. There are exam practice videos as well being developed, with students being informed which skills each question requires, so they can pinpoint exactly which skills they need to be to improve at in order to gain the highest marks on a particular question. We've added new additions to the structure section, which relates directly to, that would be question 3 on paper 1, I believe, in the English. And then we've had further additions to evaluation, spelling, punctuation and grammar, developing vocabulary and so on, all based on feedback that we've received from customers. In addition to all of these that you can see on the screen, we've also, to an extent, reduced the size of the maths diagnostics. There are obviously the 5 diagnostics. They used to take about an hour, there or thereabouts, to complete. And a lot of tutors were saying that because there were 5 of them, it was taking too long for their students to complete them. Ordinarily, students would complete, say, the number diagnostic at the outset of their course, then complete all the number interactive resources, and then they'd move on perhaps to the algebra diagnostic and so on and so forth, and go complete the course in that manner. But even doing it that way, tutors said it's still a little bit long, so we've stripped it back. Students are able to complete the diagnostics slightly more quickly. The average is now down to about 40 to 45 minutes, but it still lets them see a meaningful result. And again, as with everything else at bksb, that maps across to the interactive learning plan and directs the student onto the resources that they need to look at to meet their skill gaps. Right then, that's just a quick overview of the GCSE product as the GCSE process rather, as it currently stands. I'll take you through now and we'll have a look into the actual bksb Live 2 system. So this is I'm looking at this on my learner login here under my account, and you can see that I've got the GCSE courses available in this panel here. If I click view courses, I get everything. I get the English at the top, and then I come down through all the 5 different mathematics sections there, excuse me, and you can see that I'm currently working my way through different ones and I'm at different stages for each of those. If we take a look within the English reading first, we can see the course in its entirety here. Now you'll be able to see that I've already done the diagnostic assessment in green here. Should you want your students to complete the diagnostic again for whatever reason, you can always ask them to come down to the bottom of this page, and the retake diagnostic link is available here. That is a function, or a feature rather, of your actual setup, so your admins can turn that feature on or off, but if it is on, that's where it will appear. As tutors, you can also request that students complete the diagnostic, so you can override the system and insist that they complete the diagnostic before being allowed to do any other aspects of the course. Here then, we've got a little key, and the key demonstrates here how different modules have been completed if they have, or it shows the little red flag if they haven't. And you can see that I've got 2 main modules here still outstanding, reading comprehension and exam reading skills, and then I've got 2 that have been completed. You can see that the first one, the tutor has overridden it and said that I'm fine with linguistic features, and then the second one, they've got the green tick to show that I've been through it and completed it all myself. If we take a look at language features as one example, we'll pop into view, because even though students have completed a section, they're not barred from reviewing it. You see I've completed 100% of the paper resources and 100% of the interactives. You can see that this is typical of how a section of module is broken down. We've got paper-based resources here, so we've got a full glossary of all the terms that are used in the resources, so students aren't sort of lost thinking what does a particular word mean. We've got the source sheets, so any sort of text of any reasonable length that's included in the interactive resource is also included here, so students can take them away, print them out, annotate them, highlight them, and so on. And then we've got the interactive resource itself and the end test. If I just pop into the interactive resource just to demonstrate what one looks like, I'll just restart this one. This sort of typifies the layout of the resources here. Just before I go into detail about it, I'll just point out that accessibility options, if any of you are new to bksb, can be accessed through this cog icon here. So if you do want to ever, as I've just demonstrated, restart an assessment, that facility is there. If you also want to look at the settings here, you can change the volume of the recorded voices, and you can also change the text size down here, or you can change the background colors, text colors, button colors, and what have you there. And you just come down and you would save your settings down here. In terms of linguistic features then, if we scroll down the page, we get some information what are linguistic features and so on. And then because it's such a detailed unit, and you can see how many different sections there are, we have developed these go-to buttons. So if on the diagnostic, a student is informed that linguistic features is something they need to look at in detail, but they know that they understand imagery, symbolism, similes, and so on, but personification is an area that of weakness for them. Rather than having to click through and answer questions, or just keep clicking to get through, they can now just choose which modules or which sub-modules they want to look at straight away. Click on that, and then they get straight there. They come in here, there's information, there are a multitude of interactive videos for students to see. They get all sorts of definitions coming in, and then they always get offered the chance to, or virtually always get offered the chance to have a go themselves. So in this case, there aren't any interactive questions directly related to personification, but they're asked to write sentences and have their tutor test them. In addition to that, where units don't ask direct questions, we do have sections at the end in this one which include general questions which cover a huge range of the material that's covered in the unit. And then we have exam style questions which allow students to take on these skills and sort of demonstrate them at a slightly higher level. And you can see, so we've got the interactive questions down here which deal with texts that students may encounter in their exams, sort of in terms of the word difficulty, the syntax and the grammar that's used, the length, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's just a demonstration of how that works. So that's one of the interactive resources. In terms of the end tests, I'll just click on the pencil icon there, and we'll get taken straight in. Again, they're all self-explanatory. It explains how many question pages there are, how many marks there are available in total. You can see the topics listed and their weightings. And if we just click through, I won't answer any of the questions, but I'll just demonstrate to you. You can see that we've tried to keep things fresh and interesting, so some of them are just direct question answers, others are highlight sections, and you just click on the highlight buttons and then choose to highlight particular sections that you think correspond to the right answer. Drop down boxes to select different answers and so on. We've got highlighting similes, There's some of the personification questions. And if we just come all the way through, so you can see there's questions being asked about all of the different elements within this module. We eventually get to the end. Students are informed that they've finished. They click next, and then they get their results page. So I managed to achieve 1% here, 1% overall, that is. You can see the date I took it, the amount of time I spent on it, and then you can see the scores broken down. I'm showing you this because the image that I used earlier might have been a little bit small for some people to see. So again, you can see here just how it breaks each section down, and then it informs the student what they should do next. And the tutor will obviously be notified when an end test has been completed. And if any one tutor or student wishes to keep a record of this result, they can just click the print button and the page in question just loads up there, and they can print it off and keep it in their folders. So I haven't gone through the diagnostic, admittedly. They're quite substantial in the length of time, so even just clicking through them could cause quite a delay there. But the diagnostics, the interactive diagnostics, work identically to the interactive resources. So once you've seen one, you effectively have seen how all of them work, which is quite useful in terms of how students come to terms with accessing the system. We've looked at a little bit at the interactive resources. We've looked at the end tests. What I will show you, I think, is the paper-based interactive resource. I'll just go into, so to access this, you log in as a tutor yourself, click on More, click on Resources, and then you just come down the screen, find GCSE English Writing, and then here's the GCSE free writing task here. Just to point out, when you do look at these different sections, you also gain access this way to the tutor guides, so that you can see there's the overall one for GCSE, and then there's all the different sections broken down here. All of these would load up in a PDF. You can download these, print them off at your leisure. So GCSE free writing. We've got the tutor marking guide for it, as well as the actual task document here. And if we take a look at this, we can see it's the diagnostic free writing task. We've got the student notes asking them to answer either question 1 or 2. The main sort of gist of the free writing element, be it whether it's to be used as the progression assessment or the diagnostic assessment, is that it mimics the question 5 on each of the exam papers that students will ultimately sit. As this has got such a significant amount of marks allotted to it, we felt that this was a good measure of just how well students would perform in an exam, as so much is riding on it. So students here are asked or are given the opportunity to write either part of a story or an article, and you can see here we've got a bottle, message in a bottle washed up on a beach, and the student is informed in about 500 words, give us the opening of a story, discovering the bottle, and so on. Again, it explains, this is a scaffolded section here, it explains just what to think about in terms of the pre-planning that can go on. Then it breaks the question down here, breaks it down into all different sections. So effectively what it does is it helps the student to create an overall answer a bite at a time. Question 2 is asking students whether they think girls and boys should be taught in separate classes. Again, suggestion is 500 words. there's the same number of marks available, and as I say, the marking grid is in the previous section to this one. We get the things to remember, the tip sheets, and then the students kind of work their way through, writing paragraph by paragraph all the different sections until they basically, again, create a suitable answer. In terms of the marking guide, I'll just pop into that, and here we are. So we get given the tutor notes discussing the purpose of the document and so on, and then we get the mark scheme here. So you can see details to enter students' information, and then there's a breakdown rather than it being an AQA style marking grid in which there's a fair amount of subjectivity as relation to which of the 4 sections does someone's work fall into. We try to streamline it and make it easier to use. So you can see here for the technical accuracy section, we've got our sentences accurately demarcated, punctuation is secure and varied, blah blah blah, and the tutor can give a mark for each of these sections, and ultimately then they can arrive at an overall score, and then they can gain some indicative sense as to where that would fall on the 9 to 1 banding scale. Within this marking section here, we've got the unscaffolded questions as well. So the first section, the first document I showed you, that's just got the scaffolded version in, but the unscaffolded ones are here if tutors want to give them out without having all this additional material to be provided to the students. Okay, so that's the progression assessment had a look at for English. We've been through the interactive resources, we've looked at the end tests. If we take a look now at the exam practice, so here I am within English writing, again under my student login. If we come down to the bottom, so we come past the modules here, we can see that exam practice begins with what's called passing GCSE English, and these are the tasks I mentioned. You can see there's one for each of the questions 2, 3, 4 and 5 on both papers 1 and 2, and then beneath them there are the 2 sets of formal papers which mimic the actual exams themselves. The computerized versions are here, shown by the little sort of monitor and keyboard icon, and then the downloadable versions here, which can be used with the ePortfolio system, are separate. Personally, I prefer the latter. They look more like the real thing, they feel more like the real thing. Students have to handwrite their answers, and I just feel it's more beneficial for them to sit something that will feel like the thing that they're going to have to ultimately sit, rather than doing it on the computer. But again, it's purely optional. In terms of passing GCSE English, I'll just go into paper 1 question 2. You can see again it's a paper-based document, and what it does is it gives a source. In this case we've got War of the Worlds, and then it explains what paper 1 question 2 would actually demand of a student. What is it asking about? What are language features? How can you sort of spot them? Let's find them in lines 20 to 26 of this particular extract. Here's an example for you, and now you find 4 more of your own. And then we go on to the next page, and we can see that we've got a list. How well did you do? Did you find these? Did you find this particular feature in this particular example of text, and so on? And then we take the student on and give them a task and say, okay, now that you've found this information, that's sort of like using your reading time in the real exam. Now you've got to write your answer, and we go on and say you try to come up with 2 or 3 PED paragraphs or SQI or whatever the current terminology is, and when you're finished, have a look on the next page, and you can see that there's a model answer. So we get the model answer, and it's highlighted in multiple colors and underlined and emboldened, and then we review that model answer, so the student can compare their answer to this first attempt by sort of a prototypical student, and we can see, how well does that answer the question, and we'll say basically, not that well. It's lacking this, or it doesn't have that, and so on and so forth. And then what we do get after that is an improved answer. So this is really what a student should be hopefully looking to produce, and rather than them just simply saying, giving one perfect answer, we endeavour to show the student just how they can improve, because the assumption is really that they would be producing something that was like the basic answer, and we sort of show them that's around 96 words, and then we say, well, all you have to do is produce 129 words, which is not that many more, and you can produce something that really meets all the demands. And then we get the review, and the student hopefully benefits in due course. As I say, there's one of those for each of the more detailed questions, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on each paper. And then once the student is happy and the tutor's happy, the student can go on to the real deal with the mock exam. If I pop into the mock exam as a tutor, however, what I will show you is, if we take a look at Set A, Paper 1, you'll see that we actually get 4 sections within the exam practice for English. There's 4 sections for each paper in each set. The student would obviously receive the source sheet, exam glossaries, question types, and the questions. But the tutor also receives a fact sheet and the mark scheme. So as you can imagine, the question types and the exam glossary focus on the kind of material that's also available in the passing GCSE English, those 8 tasks that are available prior to the student sitting the mocks. And then what the tutor also gets, which they can provide to the student after the student has completed the exam, is this fact sheet. And what this does, in the same vein really, is it explains to the student what a good answer would theoretically look like. So within this fact sheet, we get the sources that the students would have had to answer on. We see the questions, we see how many marks that are available, and this is exactly what the student would have seen in their question paper. And then we get a breakdown here. We get a model answer, and we get that for each question. And as we come through to the questions that are more valuable, you can see that with question 4 here, we get a color-coded breakdown of just where this particular student in this particular answer has picked up their marks. And you can see all these different subsections here showing that these are the skills that the student has used, these are the features that they've identified, and so on and so forth. And as I say, that fact sheet is available for tutors to issue to students after they've completed the exam. Again, there's a mark scheme here, and students can simply use their version of this page to upload any documents that they might have completed, and the tutor will be notified in due course and can mark them and return them. So that's a little bit of an overview of the GCSE English. If we go back now, we'll take a look at a little bit of the GCSE Maths. Try and find my student login. So GCSE Achieve once more, we come back to the home page on the student login, view the courses, and come down past the English at the top there, and we start to see the different sections here. Again, that retake diagnostic link is available here if you think a student didn't really put in enough effort or attention and you want them to take it again, or at some subsequent point, several months down the line, you want them to resit the diagnostic as a means of distance travelled, you can do it in that way. But as I say, the progression assessments are out now, and they've been created precisely to do that task. So maybe there isn't the need to do that as there might have been in the past. If we take a look just within number as but one example, you can see here that I've completed the diagnostic and I'm onto the modules. So one thing I can show you is the fact that higher tier resources do appear beneath the standard foundation modules. So where the higher information is available and students need to look at it, they can do so in that manner. Again, if students are only sitting the foundation, because the higher tier resources are separated out like this, they don't have to do things that are unduly difficult or that are unnecessary for them. In terms of exam practice, we can see here that we get the 3 videos which go into detail about explaining to students how to go about answering questions within the exam. Now, obviously, for certain questions, the initial questions, it's self-explanatory, they're quite straightforward. But for the later questions, these videos do go and give more information to the students as to how they can avoid dropping the marks. Students, in many cases, will not answer a question perfectly. They'll think they might have done and they've got the ultimate answer, but in terms of their working out and so on, which will gain them marks, they can fall down sometimes. So those videos are there to try and prevent that happening. Once students have reviewed those, they can then move on to the exam practice. Again, it's separated into foundation and higher. They just click the button, the resource loads up, and then they just make their way through answering the different questions. Again, I've been in this one already, but if I just restart it, you can see how easy it is. It takes me back to the beginning, gives me the warning triangle telling me which tier I'm looking at, just in case I've clicked the wrong one by mistake, and it takes me through and I can answer the questions at my leisure. And ultimately, when I come to the end, I'd be given a breakdown of scores and features, identical or very similar to the end tests in English. But in this case, that ability to identify particular areas of strength and weakness is incorporated into the exam practice, whereas in English it's a separate feature. Okay, the last thing I'll show you now then is if I go back to the home page, is the progression assessment for mathematics. This is a fully interactive module, and it appears within questionnaires. So if you're trying to find it in GCSE up here, it's not there. It's within questionnaires. So if we look at it there, and it's enabled on your system, you can see also within here are the screeners. If you ever need to use those, it's not clear whether someone is of a GCSE standard or functional skills. That's where they are. And then we've got the progression assessments down here. Just click the button, just like you would any other within bksb. The system loads up, and we get the progression assessment. Again, I've already been doing this one, but if I just restart it for you so you can see the opening panels, we get explanation at the outset as to what is expected of the student. You can see how many sort of questions you're going to be asked, 2 or 3 on different topics. And basically this is a new reactive assessment, which is designed to obviously show and demonstrate to yourselves the progress that a student has made from the outset and going through the course. The way it works is that students get asked a sort of a moderate level difficulty question on a particular topic, and then depending how well they answer that, they get asked subsequent more difficult questions or less difficult questions, and it chops and changes depending on how those questions are subsequently answered. A little bit like almost the old kind of sort of choose your own adventure books. Depending on how well you answer this, you get asked a different question, and then depending on how well you answer that, you get asked a different question as well. And the student makes their way through in that manner. So in actual fact, the the best students, the most able students, and the least able students tend to spend less time on this progression assessment, because they end up being asked fewer questions, and it's your middling students who will be asked the most questions in order to sort of define with more precision exactly where they fall on the spectrum of ability. I think, looking at my notes, I think that's about it for now. I don't think I've got anything else to say. If anyone would like to stay on the line, and you can speak to me in the chat box or in the questions box and ask me any questions. But other than that, I think that's everything for a quick overview, 3/4 of an hour. Thank you very much for your time. I hope it's proved useful to you. If you'd like any more information about GCSE or any of the products from BKSB, please do give us a call or send us an email. Our number's 01623 413333, or you can find further contact details on our website at bksb.co.uk. But other than that, thank you very much, and goodbye.